The 2024 Ford Mustang EcoBoost and the 2024 Toyota GR86 are two of the last very few remaining two-door rear-wheel drive sports cars you can get these days, but they're actually affordable. And in this video, I'm going to cover all the differences as far as exterior, interior, take them both for drives, also talk about, the comparisons as far as pricing and fuel economy, everything in this video to hopefully give you some clarity if you're deciding between one or the other about which one will be the better fit for you. So one of the main things that's obvious is the size differences between these two, but I'm going to put it into numbers just for those of you that might not have a recent experience with either of these vehicles. The EcoBoost is about 2 feet longer than the GR86. You can really see that, especially with these cars right next to each other, just how much longer. I got to step backwards to even get the full Mustang's length in frame here. And also the EcoBoost here is about 5 inches wider, 3.4 inches higher, and it's also on a wheelbase that's 5.5 inches longer, which certainly does help with stability there. But another thing that might actually go in the GR86's favor as far as stability and agility is the engine placement. So the unique thing here about the GR86 is its boxer 4 engine. It's really sitting low, and you can just see, I mean, my kneecap basically is like, right underneath where the top of the engine sits. It's really close to that engine. I mean, it's so low compared to, I mean, you can probably see even on camera here without the size comparison, but I mean, my knee isn't even up to the top of the grill here, and you can see the engine even comes up even beyond that. I mean, it's so much higher. And so that, in addition to the fact that the GR86 is about 900 pounds lighter or so than the Mustang, means they're going to handle wildly different, even though they're both rear-wheel drive based vehicles that both have sporty aspirations. They do it in completely different ways. And so while these two vehicles are very similar as far as their setup and their way that they go about doing things from, a basic drive standpoint, I mean, they couldn't be more different with their driving characteristics. And while both of these vehicles have Brembo brakes and sportier tires on them, the Mustang has to do much bigger tires, 255 wide, bigger brakes, way bigger brakes, obviously due to the extra size, the extra weight. But the GR86 here has a lot of the same capabilities, with extended track driving with these Brembo brakes and all that, while still, doing it with a lot less rubber too. 215 wide tires. Obviously different levels of grip between these two, and I'll talk about that on the road. But at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot more money on tire replacements in the long term on the Mustang versus this little Toyota's 215 wide tires. And so just one other thing to consider if you plan to own one of these. But as it sits for the starting price, both of these vehicles actually start really similar in pricing, with them both starting in the low 30s, about $33,000 for the EcoBoost, about $32,000 with the performance package and all that here on a base GR86. And this one is, in the $35,000 range or so, being the premium. But, both in the low to mid 30s to start. Now, with the EcoBoost, you can spend about $3,500 for this performance package to get the tires and the brakes and the extra handling stuff. That puts this around $36,500, but I mean, very, very close. Now, this specific EcoBoost, they put a bunch of extra stuff in it. So this one, as tested, is $49,000. You'd have to be crazy to spend 49 grand on an EcoBoost. At that point, you can get a GT with a performance package, but, so just the idea that you can get this kind of performance for about the same price as the GR86 is what we're going for here. As far as the interiors of these two vehicles, they also do things very differently. So the first thing, I'm here in the GR86 interior, and it's a lot tighter. I wouldn't say that it's, uncomfortable or anything. It's just that you have less space, obviously being a smaller car. So you're going to be a little cozier to your passenger compared to the Mustang and all that. But it also is wonderfully simple. I really love that about the GR86, is that, you just have kind of a simple screen. It still does your smartphone integration, although it's wired here in this, it's wireless in the Mustang. But, just volume and tune knobs and physical climate controls, just a few buttons, and your fair share of hard plastic and stuff, but it's all just nice and simple. There's not a million customizations. There's really no customization, honestly, but it gets the job done totally fine. It's purposeful, and it's just a great place to spend time still. I've spent, several weeks in these vehicles now at this point, and I really like this generation interior. The Mustang, though, does things very differently. You have a huge 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, a 13.2-inch touchscreen, and, it's a lot of tech. There's a lot of customization. There's ambient lighting, especially this one being the premium. But even on the base one, you still get a lot of customization with different drive modes and, a bunch of different things. And again, you do get a little bit more space, so it's a little more livable. There's a little little bit more storage space for your stuff on the inside, things like that. So I'd say the Mustang is certainly the more livable interior from a daily driving standpoint, but that doesn't mean that the GR86 is uncomfortable by any means. You know, you still have an armrest and, you know, padded elbow points and, you know, all the basics here. Although, again, you have a better stereo in the Mustang. Even Bluetooth phone calls are a little bit higher quality in the Mustang versus in this. So this is definitely a little simpler, a little cheaper. So I think from a comfort standpoint, the Mustang definitely wins for most people, but that doesn't mean that the GR86 interior is bad either. But let's start off with the acceleration in the GR86 and see how that accelerates. Here we go. All right, caught the red line there, but man, this thing, it rips so well in the upper RPMs. A 7,500 RPM red line in this. And I also love that, you know, there's not really any exhaust note. You'll hear the exhaust note in the EcoBoost, but a really great induction note. And I think there's a little bit of help through the speakers as well, but it sounds really good and it gives you a good sound without blasting it to the rest of the world, which comes down to your personality type, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I personally can appreciate, you know, having my own fun with the car, and I'm going quickly, but otherwise I'm not really disturbing too many other people. I mean, you hear some exhaust note on the outside, but you know, you're going to need an aftermarket exhaust on these to get, you know, the throaty roar like you can get in the Mustang. But you know, higher red line here in this as well, with the EcoBoost only revving, you know, to like 6,400 RPM or something. This is, you know, like 7,500. And it also is a really good amount of power. So these have 228 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. And yes, that is about 90 less horsepower than the EcoBoost. And the EcoBoost has almost double the torque of this, with 350 pound-feet in the EcoBoost. And we'll try that out in a second here. But, you know, it only ends up being about a second slower for the 0 to 60. Whether a second slower is the end of the world to you or not will also come down to your personality type. But, you know, it's not a huge difference because, again, in the Mustang, you're dealing with an extra 900 pounds or so that it has to propel. And so this feels really lively and really feels a lot better than those numbers might suggest. And so, you know, on paper, it might be like, oh man, it's a bloodbath. There's no competition. You know, the EcoBoost is going to feel way faster. And yes, it will feel faster, a good bit faster, especially if you have boost weather near you, where it's, you know, gets a little colder in the evenings and stuff, where turbos can take advantage of that denser air. It's really going to, you know, be even more apparent then. But this is a lot of fun. And if you wrote off the last generation because it felt slow, I agree, it did feel slow. But this version, to me, has fixed all of my complaints with the power with these cars. And to me, it is totally good. A 5.5 second 0 to 60 is plenty to have fun with on the roads. And, you know, allows you to actually ring this car out a little bit more than the EcoBoost, I think, because you're able to, you know, go fast, yet you're not, you know, breaking speed limits quite as much as you are in the EcoBoost. It has good punch in the mid-range as well. Again, it's no EcoBoost Mustang. If you like power, that's going to be the one for you. But, you know, if power isn't the end-all be-all for you, I think that this is going to be plenty of fun, plenty of punch, and be a really great experience. Another thing I really love about the GR86 here is the manual transmission, which you can't get anymore in the EcoBoost. It's really sad you can't, because the transmission in the EcoBoost isn't great, which I'll get to in a minute. But manual in this is so good. It's really slick. It's not one of the best manuals in the world. I think that, you know, the Honda manuals and some of the others out there are certainly better, but this is a really rewarding manual. Nice short gear ratios, so you're shifting a lot, but it's an enjoyable experience. The clutch is nice and light. It's pretty easy to learn and modulate. You have really quick throttle response. The only thing I will say is it's a little tricky to rev match your downshifts because the engine does take a little while to rev up, and you know, the whole experience can feel a little clunky. There is no auto rev matching here, like you did get in the Mustang EcoBoost back when they did have a manual, but obviously that is a moot point now. But you know, I just would love to see this have that. It doesn't, but you know, if you're someone who enjoys manual, you're probably going to enjoy doing it all yourself anyway. It just is a little bit more of a learning curve here to be smooth with the GR86 manual, but it's just great to have that manual transmission experience still in this. If you're someone that does like an automatic transmission, though, I will say that the one in the GR86 here, I did have a little bit of experience with it. It's a better automatic than the one in the EcoBoost. I'll explain why when we get in the Mustang, But, you know, the one in the GR86 here, it's just 6 speeds. It's a traditional feeling transmission. It's not the quickest in the world, but it's better than you might expect, and it's totally fine. And I think, you know, it'll be a good automatic experience. It's predictable. It does what you want. It's pretty well programmed, and I don't really have any complaints with the automatic, but it certainly is more fun here in the manual. Now, other things here, you know, we got another little corner here, you know, but the one thing I really like is that this road is pretty smooth, but, you know, you don't hear much road noise. There's a little bit of tire noise, but it's not too bad. And, you know, the ride's a little bit bumpy. This is, again, the performance pack version of the GR86. So it has these Sachs dampers, which are a little bit different with their tune. They're supposed to give you extra stability over the regular dampers on a regular GR86. You know, I haven't noticed a big difference in ride, but I'm maybe assuming you'll get a slightly softer ride in the GR86 without this performance package. But regardless, it's going to be a fine ride. Now, it is a sports car ride. You're going into this, you know, with a sports car. And with an EcoBoost, if you want a soft, smooth ride, you can get those without the performance package and have a nice, floaty Grand Tour if that's what you want. And you just want the power and the rear-wheel drive, you can have that. It's great that they offer that. You know, but with the EcoBoost Mustang, it's going to be a little bit of a more complicated scenario as far as the options you get, as far as what exactly you're going to get as far as ride quality goes. And now, doing an acceleration in the EcoBoost, we have it in the sport mode with a sport exhaust, and here we go. Get a little bit of wheel spin there, and I mean, yeah, this thing, it takes off really quickly. And it sounds good doing it. You got a nice active exhaust there. That is a $1,225 option. Then you have to go up to a premium or a 101A package in order to get that exhaust. So if you want the extra sounds, all in, it's going to be about close to $4,000 extra. So that puts you, you know, up to around $37,000 there for that one. Oh, there's an XLR. I don't see those too often. But anyway, so yeah, it's, you know, a good sound, but it's a ton of power. 4.5 seconds 0 to 60 thanks to 315 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. And, yeah, it's just punchy everywhere. It's so, so strong. And in sport mode here, the transmission does a pretty good job of figuring out what you want, although we can do some manual shifts here. And you can hear it's a little lazy. Upshifts are pretty good in sport mode. Normal mode is a different story. It's a little bit slower in normal mode typically. We can actually go up into normal mode just to demonstrate here. And it takes a few seconds for it to switch over. Again, all this tech wizardry, again, stuff you don't get in the GR86 as far as, you know, this is a little bit more of a complicated thing, more waiting periods and all that with all the technology in general. But now, it's a little rougher too with this automatic, and you can feel me, you know, jerking around here. So it's pretty quick on those upshifts. You know, there's times where this transmission is pretty good. There's been other times where it's been really annoying me during the week, and even doing those rolling shots that we were doing, the transmission couldn't figure out how to keep pace with the camera car, and so it would be constantly downshifting, upshifting, downshifting, upshifting, and you could see even in the frames where I'm, you know, coming up and then I'm going back and coming back and going back. That's not me doing it deliberately. It's me literally trying to just keep up with the car at a steady speed, and it's not. It's like doing that was an impossible thing for this car's transmission to figure out. So, you know, it just comes down to, you know, I guess again how the transmission has learned you're driving. This press vehicle has almost 10,000 miles on it. These transmissions do learn your driving habits, so maybe this one just doesn't know what to do anymore because it has a different driver every week. But, you know, it's just not great. And it's also, I mean, there's some really rough shifts here with this 10-speed automatic. It's not the best experience, but the power, of course, is tons of fun. And that is, you know, the big reason you go for the EcoBoost. If you're someone who likes power, you're going to be happy with this for sure. It is, I mean, a 4.5 seconds 0 to 60 is like my 2019 Mustang Bullet that I used to have. That did a 4.4 seconds 0 to 60. Now, the manual is what slows those down on the Mustangs, but with this automatic and this EcoBoost, you can keep up with V8 GT Mustangs of even, you know, just the prior generation. It's really a ton of power. I think this motor is underrated. It is a new motor here in the 2024 EcoBoost. It's got a new turbo. It's got port injection now in addition to the direct injection for better long-term reliability. reliability, just all kinds of, you know, improvements here, electronic wastegate now for this motor. But it's a big beefy motor. That's why it's, you know, it's mounted up so high there in this car and all that. But it drives like one, dude. It's so punchy. One nice thing with this performance exhaust here in the EcoBoost though is that it does have a quiet mode. So if you don't like it always being loud and droning and all that, you can set it to a quiet function, and then you have, you know, a little bit more of a subdued nature if you want it to feel closer to, you know, what you get in the GR86. You do have that option, and then the great thing is with all these drive modes, you know, you can have it nice and loud whenever you're feeling a little more rowdy. But we're coming up some corners here on the GR86, and let's see how it handles. So again, 215 wide, little Michelin Pilot Sport, 4 tires on it, and it is so good. And the back end wants to play around with you a little bit. That's one of the wonderful things about this car, is its playful back end, even more so than the BRZ that this shares most of its components with. The Toyota's tuned to be a little more tail happy, and so, you know, it's so happy to rotate. It's so light, it's so eager, it's just so fun in a light-hearted way. It's not super serious, it's not, you know, it's not this crazy intense attack vehicle. It's just going through the corners effortlessly, again with this low center of gravity thanks to this engine, the lightweight, you know, the nice skinny tires. You know, it's not overboard. The steering is fairly light. You have this little steering wheel. It's all just a very pure, simple experience. It just does what you want it to do, and it just works. It's so good. A lot of people have, you know, said this is like basically a front engine Porsche Cayman or something like that. You know, it's a very real sports car experience. You're sitting low in the vehicle. It's a nice small vehicle too. You know, you have nice thin A-pillars. It's easy to see over the hood. The hood basically disappears aside from the fenders, giving you a little bit of an idea of where your front wheels are, which is really helpful if you're trying to, you know, hit the apex in corners and all that. But it just is so good. But I mean, that back end is always shifting around on you a little bit, even with these you know, performance tires on. And if you go for a base GR86 without the performance package, you're going to get just regular all-season tires, which will give you even more tail-happy antics if that's what you're after. But I always have loved these cars. I've been a big cheerleader for these. If you're familiar with the channel, I've always loved these things, and I still do. It's just, again, going to come down to your personality and what you like. But I think that, you know, this is a really fantastic little car for a back road, and if you do a lot of cornering, you know, I think that this would probably be my pick. But let's go try out the Mustang and see how that does. But now coming up to those same corners here in the EcoBoost, let's see how it does. So much bigger vehicle. Again, you're sitting up higher, you got this big long hood to look out over. Very different experience for sure. But I mean, it still grips pretty well thanks to these 255 wide Pirelli P0 summer tires. Now I will say the Pirellis, in my experience, are just less tire than the Michelins. They're less sticky. I mean, in this case, it's fun because it means you got, you know, a little bit of a more eager back end. But again, like the transmission there, even in sport mode, now it's sitting at a higher RPM. It wasn't doing that before when I was trying to power out of the corner. It wasn't giving me that downshift. So I got that downshift too late. Wasn't able to do the acceleration out of the corner I wanted. Another example of this automatic just not being the best as far as the programming. You know, I mean, you feel more body motions here. It is, you know, I'm wrestling the car a little more because these, again, weigh about 3,900 pounds here, 3,800 or so. You know, so it's, you know, it's just more to manage here. I feel like I'm managing it, and yes, it's doing it, and I'm tackling the corner instead of dancing through the corner. I think is the way I can describe the difference between these two. You're doing it, you're, you know, going through it, and it's gripping, and it's going, and it's, you know, it's doing it, but it's more work, and that might be more thrilling to some people. Again, all personal preference, but, you know, it just, to me, you know, it's fun for sure. I mean, I'm not complaining. This isn't like I'm, you know, not having a good time here or anything. Like, it's fun, but it's just, you know, a different kind of experience. And so if you don't have the luxury of taking both these on a back road, it's just going to come down to just really the type of experience you're used to, what you like, what you don't like. I've been driving S550 Mustangs for 10 years. It's not a big deal. They handle totally fine. But if you're someone who really enjoys, you know, cutting up corners, I think the GR86 is going to be the better choice. If you have a lot of straight roads near you, this is going to be the better choice, I think, in that regard. And also, while I'm doing some, you know, tight maneuvering here, it's also, you know, just like it's a bigger vehicle, so you're always you know, parking it and stuff. I mean, again, it's still a coupe. We're not talking about some 3-row SUV or something, or a pickup truck, but you know, you still have more to manage here versus the GR86. It's so easy to just zip into parking spaces, zip in and out of, you know, congested areas and stuff. It's, you know, just the convenience of having a vehicle that's like 2 feet shorter. You know, it's really nice. So again, it comes down, if you live in a place with wide open spaces, might not be an issue for you. If every parking lot is giant and deserted all the time for you, then no issues. But if you live in a place where it gets kind of crowded, you're gonna like, I think, the smaller size of the GR86. But both are totally manageable. Like, you got backup cameras, you got all kinds of, you know, stuff to help you out, you know, park sensors, all that if you want. So not a big deal, but you know, I think that from a livability standpoint, this has better comfort, but maneuverability is certainly going to be, you know, the better thing in the GR86. In this road here, even though it's great with the corners, you can hear there's a little bit of extra road noise it's generating. It's a little bit of a rougher road. And, you know, refinement is one thing where the EcoBoost is definitely better. And I'm not going to bother taking both these vehicles on the highway because it's going to be no contest. You know, it's going to be a quieter, smoother highway cruiser in the EcoBoost Mustang. That's going to be the way to go. If you do a lot of highway driving, absolutely the EcoBoost is going to be the better thing. I've done a lot of highway miles over the 4 S550 Mustangs I've owned in the past 10 years. They're fantastic highway cruisers. This isn't going to come close. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You can certainly live with it if, you know, you do have a lot of highways, but you also love what the GR86 offers. You know, it's by no means a penalty box, but, you know, it's just going to be a little bit of a louder experience, less refined, a little bit more bumpy, all that. I lived with a last gen BRZ for a couple of years as well, did lots of highway miles in that, and again, it's totally doable. But, you know, if we're comparing the two, Mustang is the clear winner as far as highway cruising goes. And it also has more standard safety technology with, you know, lane keep assist, even though they both now for 2024 do have adaptive cruise control, which is nice. But you know, it's going to have, again, no lane keep assist here in the GR86. You do get that in the Mustang. This premium one does have the blind spot monitoring and stuff, but you have a little bit more of the active safety tech in the Mustang compared to this as well. Reliability is something that's really hard to weigh in on, but I know that's a thing that will be on a lot of people's minds if you are considering buying, you know, one of these two vehicles. And what I can say is, you know, one is a Toyota and a Subaru engine, so, you know, there's that component, but Toyota for some of the other stuff as well should be pretty rock solid. The Ford has also been pretty reliable. S550 Mustangs, you know, have no problem doing 6-digit mileage, like any modern car, really. You know, you should be totally fine. There's EcoBoost that I've seen, you know, with a couple 100,000 miles, they can do it, and that's even with the old motor, which didn't have the port injection. With this new motor, I would assume it's going to be even better with long-term reliability and performance, thanks to that port injection, cleaning off those injectors and giving you, you know, less carbon buildup and stuff than what you had with the old motor. So I would hope that this motor would be even more reliable. This is a brand new motor, though, you know, according to Ford, and even if it's just a heavily revised version, you know, we still don't know how that new turbo is going to hold up, how all the other stuff's going to hold up. So a little bit more of an unknown here with the EcoBoost Mustang. Based on Ford's track record with EcoBoost motors, though, I am inclined to have confidence and give them the benefit of the doubt. But, you know, my EcoBoost did have some, you know, little quirks. It was smoking at one point and had some weird things, you know, 10 years ago whenever I had the first iteration of those EcoBoost Mustangs. So, you know, it's hard to say with the Mustang is the bottom line, because it's a newish motor and because, you know, Ford, you know, just usually doesn't have the rock solid reliability of Toyota, especially, and even Subaru. Subaru's not amazing most of the time, especially the boxer motors, you know, sometimes can need some things down the road. I don't have a crystal ball, but generally I would say, in my opinion, they're most likely going to be pretty reliable and both be, you know, pretty comparable, I would say, as far as the reliability goes long term for both of these. But, you know, time will tell. We will see. Your mileage will vary, no guarantees, but that's my feelings on it overall. One of the last things to mention here about these two is that they get basically identical fuel economy, even though this thing has, again, 900 pounds less, way less power, no turbo on it. Because of the short gearing here of the GR86, it suffers in fuel economy, and so you only get, if you do the automatic GR86, you get one better MPG on the highway in this compared to the Mustang. Now in the real world, maybe you'd have bigger differences than what the EPA rates these two at, but as far as the EPA ratings, they are basically identical which one shows just how inefficient this boxer motor is, or two, just how efficient the EcoBoost motor is, with as much power as it's making, and its larger size and all that. But I think really it comes down to this boxer motor. It's not very efficient, and it's really a shame, because I mean, there's no reason why this couldn't be a 40 mpg car if it was just efficient, maybe had a normal inline 4 from Toyota instead of Subaru's engine. But again, that Subaru flat engine is what gives this car its handling magic of that motor sitting so low and giving that great low center of gravity. But yeah, so I think for me, as someone who loves high revving engines, who loves a manual transmission, who loves the simplicity and the purity of this car, and I don't need to have a ton of horsepower, this is enough fun for suburban back roads, and we have a lot of windy roads around here where I can really appreciate this car. So personally, if it were me, I would pick this over the EcoBoost Mustang, even though it has, again, way more power, way more comfort, and all of that. I don't do a ton of highway driving. It's mostly just curvy back roads, and so for my situation, the GR86 would be my pick. But, if you do a lot of highway driving, if you want more comfort, more space, more power, it all comes down to your preferences. And I think, it's great that we have two vehicles that are similar, again, in some ways, but also do things very differently. It gives you two very different experiences, and hopefully will, be able to fit exactly what you're going for. And so hopefully this video helps you to pick the vehicle that'll be the right choice for you. I would say that you probably can't go wrong with either. If you live in a place that doesn't have very many corners, I think you're better off in the Mustang, though, for sure, because the handling prowess of this car would be wasted on roads that are arrow straight all the time. So it comes down to where you live and all that, and your driving style, a whole myriad of use cases as far as what's going to be the best one. But anyway, hopefully that gives you some good ideas here and helps you in your journey if you are considering these two. If you have any follow-up questions, please ask them in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to help you out, and I'm always trying to help people find a car they'll love. So I'm always happy to answer any questions you have. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Huge thanks to both Toyota and Ford for providing me with these vehicles to do this comparison for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.